I am so honored and thrilled to be here because I truly am a product of you. I truly am one of you. Yesterday, I want to thank Doreen Turk-White, who picked me up and drove me here. But we have been in the trenches for now over 40 years. And it was just wonderful to visit with another friend who was the first woman ever to be the Deputy Director of the Office of National Drug Control Policy. And we together really conspired to do a number of wonderful things and be able to make a difference. I cannot tell you all, just being with many of you all, and I really just have to just thank the heroes and sheroes that are here. And last night we had a wonderful, wonderful dinner. And I want to thank Nicole, Augustine, Ruth, Swedlinger, Debbie Wirtz, Louise Montag, Dennis Harrods, Achilles, and most importantly, Doreen Turk-White and Effie Carr, because if it were not for them, I would not be here. So please, you all, let's please give them an amazing round of applause. Sorry, Mike. And I need for you all to really help with me real quickly. Will everyone just stand up real quick? Good. All right. I want everyone to raise your hands over your head. Very good. Stretch up. All right. Now bring your hands right down in front of you. One more time. Go back up. Bring them back down again. And last time, raise your hands up and come out in front of you. All right, you all. So I want to thank you all because you now have just had my handouts and overheads, all right? And I will tell you all, I made sure, thank you so very much, I made sure that all of you all had handouts because one of the things as we go to conferences, we end up writing furiously and trying to take notes. I hate that because you're trying to pay attention and you're trying to write down things. So one thing I have done, which I know many keynote speakers do not do, and that is I've given you all the handouts and stuff for you so that you all would have them and you can write them and you can take as many notes and things. And because when you go home, you go, gosh, what was that person said? What was that funding source? So I want to be able to make sure that you all have that. You all, what I want to be able to visit with you, and I wanted to certainly thank thank you, Ms. Coleman. Many, many, many years ago, I just have to tell you, in working in the field of prevention, I worked with Sue Thaw to make sure we got that 20% set aside for prevention, and I will tell you, the state directors hated me. And sometimes you all, you just got to get in good trouble. But it was worth it because the block grant, which is a $3 billion block grant, literally didn't even have us in there. And yet people across this country were doing amazing work in their communities because local people really do solve local problems best. And you all get up every single day and be able to make that statement true. So I want to thank you for that because, again, we got into a lot of good trouble in doing that. I was listening to Ms. Carr, and one of the things that you all, how many of you all have ever heard of OraSure testing strips? Okay, so OraSure, they're right. They're now saliva test kits that you can literally take the saliva of a person, and then it will tell you whether or not that person is HIV positive or not. So when the AIDS crisis hit our country, there were many people who just wanted those people to kind of go away. And I remember in the middle of the night, working with one of your other Michigan ladies, and that was Marianne Solberg. We literally were we were at SAMHSA at this point was the Center for Substance Abuse Prevention, and people kept saying, here was this product that could help us on the local level be able to quickly test people, because before you could do saliva tests, you had to go in and get a blood test. So of course, how many people are going to volunteer to go in and get stuck with a needle, right? Very few people. And so one of the things the administrator at the time said, Beverly, I don't know how we're going to get this out. How are we going to get people to use this? And I said, well, we should start with the treatment agencies and certainly start with the prevention agencies. Let's take these kits, send them out to everybody for free, and let them explain how to use them, and we'll be able to get this into the groundwater of communities. So he sort of floated that up. He didn't really ask permission, because sometimes I said, just don't ask permission, just ask for forgiveness. And so one of the things that we said, he said, well, I floated it up to the secretary, but I knew the bureaucracy would go, what's the number one response when you first ask a bureaucracy to do something? Anyone? Right, who said that? All right, what's their first response? No. Stand and tell me your name. Is Terry Phillips? Miss Phillips, I want you to know, so it sounds like you've experienced some of this. And so my question to you is, when you experience that, what do you do? Wait, did you all hear what she said? She said, you just keep on going until you get a yes. And I want you all to know that in this field, prevention never means no. It just means no at that moment. It doesn't mean that that's what you do. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Miss Doreen, would you please give this young lady, thank you for standing up and saying that. Your gift is a $25 gift card. Thank you so much. Let's give her a hand. And you all, one of the key things in my being here is I wish, again, I not only want to celebrate and honor you, but I want to make sure that we are pushing forward. So having said that, long story short, before we could get a no back from the secretary's office, we went up there, I think we started at 6 o'clock at night. We put all of these packages together. We got them down to Federal Express, and I sent these out all over the country. Sent these kits out to treatment providers, coalitions, et cetera. And quite frankly, that is the story of how OraSure got into the shelves of the CVS stores, your Walgreens, et cetera, so that people could have these strips to do that. And it is now and it's amazing because that was so many years ago, but now it's just natural. People just go into the stores to be able to get that. But one of the key things that's really important that we all know is that you guys are always doing good work, and some of you continue to get into good trouble, and I thank you for absolutely doing that, so give yourselves a hand on that. So now as we go on this journey, we want to be able to really talk about the growth of this field. And I'm so pleased, Ruth, thank you. And did I also thank Ruth? Good. Ruth, you're the theme of making sure that we are growing, both individually and as communities, is one of the best messages we can have here today. You all, in expanding that, I really want to focus in on the things that held us back. I'm just really talking about our era. We evolved from really kind of pushing back on that. And one of those was that what we do is substance use prevention, and that's all we do. I want to be real clear with you all. For a very long time, the CACA leadership was like, no, we're just going to focus in on making sure that we're doing life skills and things for young people, and that's it. And I just have to just say, it was so wonderful listening to, I want to say Debbie. Debbie, where are you? Debbie last night. Debbie Stan, you too. I'm going to give her card in advance. You're getting that $25. And the reason I say that is because Debbie at dinner last night, it was so important what she said. This is really not about it is not about just prevention. It is about the entire continuum. I've been around for 40 years, you all. Debbie, thank you so very much. Did you get your card? Yes. And I am so, truly, you all, I am so tired of us just helping people get better. It is time for us to help people get well. And there's a difference. We don't want you to get better anymore. We want you to get well. And in so doing, I want to be able to emphasize that prevention is prevention is prevention. Prevention is going to be doing all of those things that actually help decrease risk factors. They're doing and increasing protective factors. And I want to just say to you all, relapse prevention absolutely is prevention as well. The delivery of recovery support services is absolutely relapse prevention and a part of prevention. Back in San Antonio, we have an apartment complex that is particularly for women who are in recovery and have children. The most important thing that those women told me, they said, I said, Bev, what do we need to do to make sure that you stay well? The most important thing was having a safe and secure place for them and their families. So here is this preventionist working with the city to get an apartment building that we will begin to make a village for those women so that they can begin to be there and not have any rent for at least a year to 18 months so that they can get back on their feet and doing that. And literally, I've had people challenge me and go, well, that's not prevention. The heck it isn't. Because to make sure that those women are, in fact, in a safe and secure place, they will fight to stay clean and sober so they can make sure they're doing that. Good health and wellness. That is absolutely prevention. How many of you all were part of an effort to help people get vaccinated when COVID hit? If you were, raise your hands. Right. We ended up being able to work with our health department. They couldn't, for the longest time, they could not get people to go get vaccinated. And they were like, and all of a sudden they saw as they were plotting participation across our community, they kept seeing this area where we were at growing. And so they called them, they said, Beverly, what is going on there? A group of women, community mothers and fathers, we got together and we said, we absolutely must get people vaccinated. The city, when the COVID outbroke in our city, we literally had, I cannot believe this, but our city, some of the city staff people decided, they rounded up a group of senior citizens who had gotten COVID. And instead of treating them, et cetera, they took them to a nursing home that was about 3 blocks from our offices and put all those people in a nursing home. And literally most of those people actually died. And I thought, of all the places, first of all, what that did to our community is it told our community that you are not valued. And when that happened, we mobilized and we got with, I want to thank Fran Prosser, Dr. Diana Byrne, truly our mental health authority leader, Jalen Burley. We actually mobilized and we started getting on the phone and we worked with our university health system to get people vaccinated. We got 8,000 people vaccinated. And that was truly the power of coalitions. And in so doing, we recognized, they kept saying, well, what are you doing? I said, well, how are y'all getting people there? I was like, you're talking to some community mothers and fathers. I got people on the phone. And I'd say, Lewis, you have not been vaccinated. And he'd go, no, I'm not going to. I said, boy, I changed your diapers. Get down there and get your vaccination. And literally, it was that whole momentum of us getting on the phone and encouraging people to do that. The power of coalitions. Was that about substance use? No. But was it about community problem solving? Yes. And if I can help you all to see yourselves in a bigger picture, what you are absolutely doing is you are mobilizing local people to solve local problems. Whole person care that fosters wellness. All of you, I've heard so many different things that you all have been doing in your communities. That absolutely is along that spectrum of working with prevention. Collaboration, and you all know that more than anybody. That's the most cost-effective strategy. You all, and please, I want to know if anyone in this room has ever dealt with someone who just has one problem. When they come to you, right? They just have one problem. I don't think so. People, when they come to us, they have multiple issues, which is why your coalition is such an effective mechanism in your communities. Nobody comes to us with just one problem. That helps you all to be able to make sure that not only are you addressing that problem, but you all have done you've done a trauma-informed overlay so that we make sure that if we get to the root causes, we can begin to make sure that they're not going to be repeating that behavior. And if anything, what you all do is absolutely cost-effective and absolutely reduces disparities. So I want to be able to just talk about you as we talk about going forward, the things that you all should be looking at and thinking about as you begin to think about sustainability. There we go, it's working, yay. All right, so in doing so, what I want to be able to say to you, and we do recognize how important data is, and I had at my table last night someone who was working with the college, but you all, one of the key things that you're going to be finding more and more is that people are going to be looking for that common set of data. How many of you all have an epidemiology work group or a data work group as a part of your coalition work? Very good. Sir, his hand went up. Sir, can you share with us why did you do that and how has that helped you? No, this gentleman. Yes, there you go. You. Dear heart, I need you to stand. Okay. No, no, mine, really. Thank you so very much. You guys, he just gives a hand. Did y'all hear what he said? He said they didn't hear over there, but if I can paraphrase, he said we rely on data to make sure we're making those informed decisions. And you all, and that is so very, very important. Effie, because I know he was going like this, he wasn't sure if he should, but sir, thank you. One of the things I want to be able to make sure of you all, data is our friend. And I recognize, and one of the things that I asked you all about coming together as a group is because when you get data from different areas and you combine that with actual geomapping, literally being able to map those data, it actually begins to help you both make a case for why you're doing something right there and why you're doing it right now or at that point. I can share with you, in San Antonio, people literally said San Antonio is growing by leaps and bounds, and one of the key things, we're a major trafficking point for drugs into this country. And people would literally say in our target area that we're just a bad part of town. I used to hear that all the time. That's just the bad part of town. One of the things that we recognized is that drug trafficking drives so many other things. Drug-related crime is the number one driver of thefts, of victimization, of prostitution. And so one of the key things we did in working with our police department, because I would constantly hear, oh, you work in the east side, you're in the bad part of town. And what I would constantly say is, the east side is not a bad part of town. It's just we have different pockets that are really bad. And if we focus on those pockets, we can actually help to change this. And so one of the key things we did is we began to get our police department to give us data. We put the data together, and it focused in on, we did it by zip code. And then we got it all the way down narrowed to where arrests were happening on which street and by the blocks. And so what we literally did is we put this whole map up there, and we began to start geomapping where the crime was occurring. And what we had is, here's the whole city of San Antonio, and what you had is little dots here, and then a whole lot of dots right here. And what that was telling us is that that's where literally all the crack houses were the houses where people were doing all of the kinds of nefarious things, where most of the drug-related crime was happening. So it wasn't in all of the east side, it was in a specific point. And with that information, we were able to work with the police department to actually begin to clean that up. We knew there was, you sort of intuitively know where things are not happening, or there's a place in your community where things are not being done that are not very good. We actually had a convenience store that was selling stuff to our kids, that was selling things out the back door. So we were actually able to target that place and get that place closed. Excuse me. In addition, we had an entire neighborhood, where the crime and the drugs got so bad that people who had literally spent their life, saving to get a home, they had bought homes in this whole area, and it was just overrun with the trafficking and violence, et cetera. We literally had people who literally walked away from their homes. And right next to that neighborhood was a large nursing home that had been abandoned, and all kinds of stuff were going on in there. So you all, when I heard Ms. Coleman talk about your National Guard, while I was in Washington, I was so very, very pleased to actually be able to work with them to put together their demand reduction program. And I did that because I was so grateful to them. Because this whole area that I told you all about, this was the creativity of our coalition. We kept going to the city and the county and the mayor and saying, we've got to get rid, y'all have to be able to do something about this place. They would constantly say, Beverly, we know it's a problem, but we have no money. We have no money to do anything about this. It just so happened, you all, that on our coalition, we had a gentleman who actually worked at Fort Sam Houston. at the Army base. And San Antonio is known as Military City, USA. But we had been, we didn't actually have anybody who was from the National Guard on our coalition board. But this gentleman, he was talking about one day, and he said, Bev, I'm going to have to miss the meeting because we have to get our soldiers ready to do readiness exercises. And he said, well, what is that? He said, well, in the military, we actually put people on a plane, we send them over to Guam, and they practice demolition as a part of war ready. We have to be readiness in war. I said, they go to Guam to knock down and practice demolition? He said, yeah. And I said, well, when you get back, Steve, I want to visit with the base commander. He's like, why? And I said, Steve, have I got a deal for you? And so when he got back, I said, Steve, how much does that cost you to put a bunch of soldiers on the plane and fly them to Guam to practice demolition? I said, how much is that costing you all each time you do that? He goes, it's a lot. It's like over $100,000. I said, boy, do I really have a deal for you. And so I said, I want to make sure that we can help you. He goes, well, how can you help us? I said, Steve, we have a whole neighborhood of 50-something homes that have been abandoned. And we have this huge nursing home that is just a blight on our community. And I said, if you're sending people to Guam to practice demolition, I said, well, how about sending them right over here to East San Antonio? And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, I want you to do this. And I showed him what I did, and it was so wonderful, you all. I literally had to sit outside of the general's office one day, and literally I just sat there. And I came back the next day, and finally his secretary said, General, you have to go talk to her. It's embarrassing. She's sitting out there and just sitting. And then I got creative, and I went down there and I started sitting on the floor and eating my lunch and pulling all that out and doing. She's like, you have to go talk to this woman, because he was obviously busy. So I said, finally, he said, ma'am, come on in. I said, General, I said, I know you don't know me, but we actually are we're working to protect this country. And this is what's happening literally right across the freeway from Fort Sam, Houston. And I said, if you think the drugs and stuff that are going on here isn't flowing over onto the base, I said, think again. This is a threat to you, your soldiers, etc. And long story short, we actually got permission to have the National Guard come into our community and help us demolish all of these homes. And it was so wonderful, you all, because we literally went to task, and I told the drug dealers, I said, we're coming for you. I just want you to know that. We're coming for you. And so they saw these big diggers and all these big tractors and stuff driving down the street, and they said, Beverly, we thought that woman has lost her mind. She done called the National Guard out on us. And it was wonderful, you all. I want you to know that was one of the most significant things that changed our communities. When the award that we got for substantively changing the community, we really did have the third highest crime rate in the nation. You all, when we finished all of these things and doing our coalition, we literally ended up with having one of the third lowest crime rate in the nation. That was about coalition work. And so literally they demolished all of that, and you all, in its place, we had worked with our real estate, our sector, and a whole new neighborhood now called Coliseum Oaks. And it has remained still one of the lowest crime rate nations in the state. And I want to share with you all that because, again, working with a demand reduction program, that story was legendary. They still talk about it in the National Guard. You all, this was resources because the military can't, because they can't do things on American soil, but they can do these kinds of things that actually help you in your communities. And I know you all have houses where people are doing things in them they shouldn't be doing. And literally, those are the things that also came under asset forfeiture. And those are some of the things that actually came back to us. Through asset forfeiture, we were able to actually get some of those houses where we started the first Oxford houses and recovery houses for people. So I just wanted to be able to share that with you all because, again, that's coalitions at its best. And as we think about this today, you all, some of the most important things that you guys are doing, and that is absolutely being facilitators, collaborators, and partners, and recognizing that the leaders that you're working with, they come in all shapes, forms, and sizes. Excuse me. And in so doing, they may not necessarily look like you, talk like you, etc., but they become your natural allies. We actually have people who are doing souped up cars, and they're part of motorcycle groups that absolutely are all about us focusing in on how does everybody in our community actually work. You all, like I said, you guys are doing the impossible, and that's exactly where we want you to be. So I want to be able to just visit with you guys a little bit. Did I? Okay. I'm sorry, all right. As we are growing, I want to just be able to make sure that we really visit about some of the leadership changes. And with the adaptive leadership, this is truly a thing that we're actually calling adaptive leadership. So in so doing, what's really important, you all, is that the leadership style for our coalitions have to change. You will not actually have this specific slide. But one of the key things I wanted to be able to talk about is we have been operating in a very hierarchical type of way. I was just sharing with the foundation, I said, you know, I want you all to understand that when you think about coalitions, we've always had, you know, somebody at the top and maybe the next layer and the next layers down. And I said, that's very hierarchical. But the way that problems come to us and the way we have to problem solve, it is really very, very circular. And so I want you all to really think about thinking, and this is for your succession as well, thinking about pulling together a group, someone who focuses in on your counting. And it's still sort of hierarchical. People who go, well, we have somebody who's over accounting, someone who's over programming, someone who's over fundraising. And they're all reporting to one person. What we have begun to do, you all, that has turned out to be very, very facilitative, is the fact that that ends up being the actual leadership team. And you all, I'm sharing this with you because I know of what I speak. What's absolutely key about that is the fact that it has really worked. We started just like you all as a coalition, and then we grew. And that kind of leadership has actually facilitated us possibly having a $15 to $18 million budget. And I say that because everybody does different type of things. This all started and still emanates from our coalition work. So in knowing that, it's really important to have, I know many of you all have your advisory committees, and as you're forming yourself and deciding kind of what you want to be able to do, it's really important, you all, to have a stable, what I call your ride or die crowd. Those are going to be the people on your board who actually are going to be with you no matter what. And then you can have, it's okay to have a small board of directors, because if you're a nonprofit, you have to have a board of directors. You have to have at least 2 people. But it's important to have that core group of ride or die folks who are going to be with you always. And then you can add to that by having lots of different advisory committees. And I want to be able to make sure you all know that your coalition can and should serve as the coalition for any number of things. And I want you all to know, if you've looked around at the different funding sources, most grant programs in the Department of Justice and HRSA, Department of Labor, they all talk about having a steering committee and people coming together. You all, that is your coalition. I was at CAGA, I was surprised that I had a woman who came up to me and said, listen, you all, your coalitions can serve as the advisory group for any other numbers of issues. If you choose our coalition group, overall, when we got a mentoring program, we established a separate subcommittee that was still part of the coalition that served as our advisory group for that particular grant. And I'm saying that to you because you all can use your coalition. There's no reason why you need to reinvent the wheel. Just add on to your coalitions. And this lady said, I never thought about that. But if you look at many of the proposals, you all, that are coming out, that it speaks to, have y'all heard this phrase? Community of solutions. We want people with lived experience being engaged and involved. They're not talking about people in recovery. They're talking about people for whatever issue. If you're working on domestic violence as a part, they want people who have experienced domestic violence to be a part of that. But this is going to be incredibly important as you're doing that. And I just want you all to know that this is where having that kind of structure allows you to take truly some calculated risk taking, because you're bolstered by your coalition and the different committees that are there. But think about that, to know that you can do all of those kinds of different things. And in doing so, as you're doing it, think about what you're saying to the world, who you are, your vision and your mission, etc. Because I've had people tell me, "What's your vision and mission?" And they recite to me the 2 goals of the Drug-Free Communities program. You all, that's just the goals of one grant program. The goal of your whole organization, your whole coalition, has to be broader than that. And that's why it is not about making sure that you do life skills training with kids. That's just one of the things that you do. But I'm giving you all these words and stuff because I want you to think about an inspiring vision and mission that actually helps you, that's forward-looking, that helps you to be broader. Things such as we are creating healthy, safe, resilient communities. We want our communities to be economically viable, because I know the economics of this whole in your communities is something that all of you all have to address. Because when people are not economically viable, they're going to do things that help them become more economically viable, and they may not necessarily be things that we want them to happen. So I'm saying that to you all because as you're thinking about sustaining yourself, it's important to broaden your vision and mission so that when funders are looking at you, they can see themselves in you. That's one of the biggest, the things, the feedback that I've gotten from national foundations about our field is they think we're too narrow. It's like they said, we've tried to work with them, but these people don't think that they don't think they're about wellness. They don't think they're about health promotion. And I said, they just tell us that they're preventing drugs and that's it. And I said, you guys, if you all cannot tell, if you honestly don't think that your work prevents gangs, you're wrong. If you do not think that your work absolutely is going to address poverty, you're wrong. If you don't think that you guys absolutely are one of the key factors that's helping to prevent crime, you are absolutely wrong. All the work you're doing is going to affect crime and health and wellness and economic development, because if you're dealing with an area that is overrun with drug-related crime, businesses will not move there. In my part of town, we lost almost 14,000 businesses in 1 year because of as I was sharing with you all about that crime problem, 14,000. And in our area, we did not have a single family in that eastern part in which their children went to one school from the 1st grade through the 8th. They moved out and moved around. Huge mobility. So that's what I'm literally just simply saying. Think about that overall. So that, and the other key things is we talk about that authentic community engagement. And asking yourself, you guys, if you closed, who would care? And that's why I want you to think about being broader. Because if you're able to affect change, you are a necessary part of your community. I encourage you all to certainly think about engaging your faith communities. How many of you all are actually engaging your faith communities in this work? And the reason I say that, I've heard that people have told me that's been really very, very hard to do. One of the things that we are doing, have y'all ever heard of mental health first aid? Okay. So one of the things that we're doing in San Antonio is that we have actually trained our churches in actually about mental health first aid. Because what ends up happening when people have a problem, one of the first places that they turn to is their churches and their pastors. We have found that. And the pastors, the clergy came to me and said, Beverly, we're not sure that we are, in fact, capable of doing this. We're not clinicians. And I said, and you know what? You're not. And I said, but what you can do is at least be able to empower yourself, build your capacity so that you know how to make a referral, that you all know how to talk someone down off of the ledge, that you can do that. So we literally began to train. We've trained 600 people and, 50-something churches in mental health first aid. And what we're really trying to do is we've not trained the pastor or the head of the church. Who we trained was members of a congregation so that they became wellness champions. And they work in the church. They're congregants of that church. And they work to create a mental health ministry. so that when someone is in trouble, they will call them. I was so pleased. I had one of the pastors call me to tell me that they were so proud of themselves. They took the training as a wellness champion. They said, Beverly, I learned that it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. Not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. And he said, it was a veteran, and his business was not going fine, and he actually was going to hurt himself and his family. He closed up his business, closed it down, he walked away from there, and he called me to tell me what he was going to do. He said I was able to talk with him, and I knew the right things to say to be able to get him over into the Veterans Hospital. And he is doing fine now. And I'm saying that because those churches can truly be part of your healing hubs. So think about that in terms of, as we're looking at all the different kinds of things, think about truly, with our police department, we do a training that's called Walk a Mile in My Shoes. And what actually happens is we have police officers, especially with young men, come in and actually do an experiential role play with them so that people understand this is what a police officer goes through in their daily work. This is why it's important for you to know how to de-escalate a situation. You've got officers. We are now working with our police department on a community immersion program where literally they're working with the cadets who are coming into the police department, and we want to be able to assign them to our Drug and Crime Prevention Coalition, so they'll get a chance to work with the community to know better how to interact with the community, because so many people have unfortunately been killed in traffic stops that never should have happened. But by taking them through this role play, they realize, oh my gosh, there's a different way you need to, when there's a traffic stop or any incident where police are involved, there's a way to be able to de-escalate that situation. And one of the things that, I don't know, we have a Citizens Police Academy, but they have this role play where you go through a building, and it's called Shoot or Don't Shoot. Now, I was with the Archbishop and one of the really incredible spiritual leaders, and we were in the Citizens Academy together, and we went through the Shoot, Don't Shoot scenario. Here we are, enlightened. Oh no, people should be able to not, shoot anybody. We shot everybody. We shot everything and everybody that moved. And what the point of that was is to just understand our officers are human beings. Okay, you put them in a scenario where they could be killed, they're going to be on guard. And so it's really important, and particularly with African American and Hispanic young men, the police officers when you are approached, this is what you do. This is not about you not being strong enough or man enough or any of those other kinds of things. This is about making sure that you get out of a situation alive. And so it is called Walking a Mile in My Shoes, where they literally switch places with the officer. They become the officers, and the officers role play what they look like. Nah, man, don't be stopping me. I don't have to talk to you. I'm not saying anything. Officers go, now you can do that if you want. But understand, you have now created a very antagonistic that didn't have to be. I am notorious for getting pulled over for driving. So let me just say that. and every time I'm the officers, they talk about me in the roll call. They claim that funny lady. Every time they come, it's like, officer, I'm putting my hands on my wheel, but I want you to know, I know you ought to give me that ticket. You ought to. I was probably driving too fast, and I did turn around in the middle of the street. I did, because I was going back to go get my, whatever. I said, absolutely, give me that ticket. Just give it to me. And I said, I'm going to save you some time. Just here, let's just write it up, and let's get going. And they're like, but I say that to you all because, again, something that could be I have been in a situation where literally, I wasn't quite sure what would have happened, but it was an officer who walked up to my window and immediately he was just afraid as I was. And literally his behavior was interesting, let me just say that. But afterwards, I literally went to go see his commander, and I said, I want to make sure we do a training for your police officers, because what happened to me could have happened to anyone. And it's a good thing. I said, this is a God thing. because I ended up with my hand being cut. And I said, I want you to realize that this was totally uncalled for, and we need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And I actually worked with them to be able to do that for that. It was a suburban police department. But again, you all, heightened fears. And so I just want to be able to make sure as we're moving forward. There we go. I want to just talk real quickly about some things in building your organizational capacity, your program capacity, and your financial capacity. All right. You all already have your action plans, and those kinds of things can actually truly serve as your business plan. Because you are a business, I do want you to know, you're, as a nonprofit, you are a business. You're just a business that doesn't necessarily deliver a product for money, but you are absolutely a business. And any of the kinds of things as you're going forward, you can think about what you want to be. You can be a nonprofit, you can also be a merger, or you can also do a partnership. At WestCare, we do all three. And working with, because it's not necessary, your nonprofit can take different forms in trying to be able to make sure you're creating that continuum. One of those things that I found out very quickly is the fact that we needed to be able to make sure that whatever we did, that we could sustain the resource development over a long period of time. I, like you all, the most important thing I worry about is making sure that all of the staff can in fact get paid and that everybody is financially stable. And all of you all I know, as you're looking at your coalitions, and we have somebody in Washington going, well, they got $125,000. Lady, and I know this. And oh, by the way, we want them to spend their time going out trying to run around and get matched, which I think should be totally eliminated. So if you agree with me, please applaud. We absolutely, but the bottom line to that is that whatever you're doing, there are different things that you can do. There are some things we're looking at doing a merger in which we're going to be expanding because we're going to be adding a whole full continuum of treatment. And then there are other things where, like the apartment building I was telling you, and to do some more in the future, we want to do a partnership with that. The treatment thing, we want to be able to do a merger, but to be able to expand housing for women and families, we're going to do a partnership because we're not in the real estate business, but we absolutely need that service. So I just want to be able to make sure that as you're thinking about, as you're going forward, I want you all to start to think about different ways and different people, how you expand, because this is going to be really key. You all, I'm going to tell you straight up, I don't do Tweety Birds, Flappy Birds, LinkedIn, Facebook. I don't do any of that stuff, and I hate it. And I don't. But I'm going to say to you, you have to have that in this world today. But this is one of the best things that you can do with your young people. Hire one of those young people, and you all, this is where several of you all can get together in a partnership. So that all of you, you've got 3 or 4 or 5 coalitions who come together, who hire someone who does nothing but manage your website. You all, I am so surprised at how much website, I hate them, but they're so very important. I don't even know what the little birdie thing, Tweety Bird, whatever that thing is. You see what I mean? But again, social media, you all, is the way that things are happening. And so even though you may not like it, you need it. But it also opens up access. You guys, because again, if people can participate with us via Zoom, oh my goodness, it saves people. Because I always say, I'm not interested in whether your rear end is in a chair. What I'm interested in is you helping me. There are very prestigious people in your community that you want to be on your coalition. And I've had owners of ball clubs who have served construction. These are true billionaires. They have served on our coalition, and I've told them, I don't necessarily want you to come to a coalition meeting. What I do want you to do is be there when I call on you. Your contribution is when I call on you, then that's what I need you for. Because their time coming to sit with you is not necessarily productive. I did have one he was a very well-known businessman. He just liked coming because we always made sure we had good food. So he'd come eat with us. But I'm saying that to you all because, again, in making sure that you have what you need, again, that's so very important to do that. But your website is who you are. And again, you guys, we know more than anything. How many of you all, if you notice young people, they have their purse in one, or whatever it is, in one hand, but their what in the other? Their phones. And they take pictures of themselves and send it and go, look, I'm petting a rock. Who cares? I mean, our generation goes, why is that important? But you all, they believe that that's a real job. And so somewhere along the line, I don't know what happened, but that's how they live. And they live based on making sure that they are doing that. And again, I just have to just tell you all, it is absolutely all about relationships. Everything you do. And I want all of you all to think about this. Being able to build an elevator speech, because you never know who you are around and what they do. I did not realize that I was on a plane one day, and I realized, and you guys, I talk to everybody. I mean, when I go through the plane, I really do. I just talk to everybody. And it was amazing, but this is a person who happened to own the theater company, Santikos. I didn't know that that's who he wasn't, but I'm just chatting away at him. We had to be sitting on the airplane. The next thing I know, he sends me a note saying, anytime that you want to do anything with your young people, you can come to a free movie. We have been doing that, going to free movies now for over 20 years. Taking groups as a part of our youth thing. So I just want to be able to think about this. You all, again, think about hosting your own podcast, co-hosting events. Y'all come together like this and bringing people together to be able to make sure that what you're doing has the multiplier effect. I love this because this is about us. This is how we get things done. I mean, the load is so much lighter when you're literally doing it with someone. And it's also going to be much more successful. I always say people will support what they help create. So literally think about co-locating. Again, you all, as coalitions, what we are doing, and I'm going to share this with you, we have just recently around the country, we have seen that there's lots of schools that are closing. So a group of coalitions got together, and we've got a school that we're all going to be co-locating in so that we can begin to put in a number of services all in one place. All of us would love to see a one-stop shop when people come to you because they don't ever come to us with one problem, that if in fact once they see us, that they can go down the hall and see someone else, they can go further down the hall and see someone else. Nobody has to get back in their car and drive anywhere else in order to get the help that they need. So literally think about truly joint staffing. Again, when I said not everybody can hire a media person, but 6 or 7 of you can come together and hire a piece of someone that works on all of your websites. So again, I've gone through that already, sorry. So, and I do want to just make sure, in bringing people together, one of the most important things to do is to really think about how you can actually begin to actually do leadership development. And again, making sure that you're focusing in on policy change, because we do know you can do a program and affect 15, 20 people. You can change a policy and affect the entire city. So you all with change programs, I always say, you guys are the tipping points in all of that. I'm going to fast forward to the things that we talk about in our sectors. So you guys, when we talk about expanding your sectors, think about the other people who you can get, and I'm going to go through this, you all have this in your slides. But I want you, how many of you all are working with AmeriCorps? Oh, you guys. So I know that, I know the actual AmeriCorps program, it can be very, very difficult to their application process. It's very complex. But you would be surprised. Every year we support anywhere from 10 to 14 AmeriCorps members. They are arms and legs in the street. Just so you know, you can buy, quote unquote, or you can actually select an AmeriCorps member, and it would cost you $16,000 in a year. And they give you service 40 hours a week for up to 10 months. And most people literally are with you for 12 months doing the service with you. And they are literally being paid for community service. This has been the number one thing that I've heard from people across the country, that this has been something that's very helpful. But I want you all to think about all these different sources for your sector members. Think about grandparents to fill in the parent section. For businesses, once again, those social media influencers, young people think that that's what they do. They influence people with their phones. But just want you all to be able to think about them as well. You had Ms. Coleman, who also talked about the National Guard. Do you know both the National Guard and demand reduction, the DEA actually have people who do serve as demand reduction coordinators? Please consider them in terms of serving on your coalitions. I put this is in your handout, so I'm not going to go through those, but these are just other things I want to be able to make sure that you know about, so you can do that. Now I want to get to what everybody wants to talk about. Just want you all to know I'll do a quick update on SAMHSA's funding, and this, you all, is really indicative of our field. If you'll notice, prevention was level funded. Mental health was bumped up. This is in a nutshell. But prevention was level funded. So that means that we didn't necessarily get any additional monies, but I know this upcoming year when you all go to, for those of you who go to CADCA, our job is going to be to make sure that we get plus-ups, that we get more money put into prevention and not level funded. The big winner in terms of our field was mental health, and it has continued to be for a number of years. So we want to be able to see what we can do to really step up and help people understand that prevention is still the most cost-effective thing that we can do for people. It is the most cost-effective thing that we can do. I want to bring you all, just to let you all know, if you look at the last bullet, Sue Thal actually worked very, very hard on making sure that CSAP was funded. And this is going to be specifically there. So language was put into the 20% set aside, where she literally talked about that the monies could not get diverted in the states to be used for anything other than primary prevention activities. And so I just want you all to know that the states, in some states, not here, but these monies have actually been diverted to other things. And so she got language put into the appropriations bill that said that when this goes to the states, that will not happen. I want to be able to talk to you all about this. This is so very, very important for your organization in general. Your indirect cost rate. How many of you all have an indirect cost rate? Very good. So those of you who do, just understand why you want an indirect cost rate. Some grants automatically say, we're going to give you you can take 10% of the money for your administrative costs. You all, 10% of that, those dollars normally is not going to cover your costs. It is through your indirect cost rates that you end up not bleeding out in small drips and drabs. Your indirect cost rate, which now literally the federal government is going to make sure that the de minimis of that is going to be raised not from 10% to 15%. But these are things that you end up paying for anyway, that you have to pay for in order to just do business as a nonprofit. But when you don't have that locked out, when you get money from other people, you end up spending this money, you end up spending your base money on things that you should be able to use spending your indirect cost rate on. I put both of these things in here. The most important thing is that there is an indirect cost guide with the U.S. Department of Labor. It tells you exactly how to get an indirect cost rate, but you all, that is really important as you look forward to moving forward, that you have that. But key to this, as we talk about you're building that financial capacity, I want to be able to talk to you all again about thinking about very, very differently things you can do. Up here, you certainly everybody knows about your grant funding and your in-kind. Thinking about your human capital, that's what your AmeriCorps program does. Leveraging your resources through co-location. All of you all are paying for a building. You may want to think about coming together and pay for one. All three of you pay for one building. Nonprofit entrepreneurship, Goodwill is a great example of that. Huge example. And so I want to just be able to make sure that you all think about that. I want to be able to really talk to you all about some of the asset building revenues. Some of you all may not know that in every city, every county, you have what's called community development block grant funds. The reason these are important is that these are grants that actually help you to either to provide services better, because you're providing services to a population, and this is really particularly to actually help you serve low and moderately income people. A lot of times, you can use this for housing, you can use it for job development, you can use it for any number of things. The next one is a Community Reinvestment Act. Most of the banks that have been in any area, and again, rural areas in the same way. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Can you hear me better? Good. Rural areas are the same way. Community Reinvestment Act, these go to all financial institutions. If you have been in an impoverished area or an area that has been, quote unquote, redlined, banks have a fund. It's called the Community Reinvestment Act, and they can actually fund projects. All of you all, because of the work you do, you meet their criteria to be able to receive Community Reinvestment Act funds. Something new that many of you all did not know about, this is where we were able to get $9 million from our tax increment refinancing zone. Cities and counties have a mechanism in which they take your tax dollars and they kind of put it away and it accumulates. But it's a tax increment reinvestment zone that's created by a municipality or a county to attract new investment into an area. So again, this usually goes to being able to help an organization buy a building. And the reason why it's important for you all to think about buying the building is because it's important for you to have that as your asset. If you have a building, it's something you can borrow off of, it's something you can leverage, but these are things that you can in fact do. Asset forfeiture funding. How many of you all have gotten your asset forfeiture funding? No, you all. Asset forfeiture funding, so you know, by law, asset forfeiture, what asset forfeiture funding is when law enforcement, no matter what branch it is, actually takes down an enterprise that it's selling drugs, et cetera, and there's a lot of money that comes with drug dealing. They put this all together in a fund, and we were able to get a law passed that said up to 15% of the asset forfeiture dollars could be used for doing drug prevention and crime prevention. So I will share with you, for asset forfeiture, this time many police, I'm going to tell you, they have to share the money, so sometimes law enforcement doesn't want to do that. But for the first time 2 years ago, yes, we got our police department to share their asset forfeit dollars. We got $150,000 from them, but I also want you all to know that's not the only thing they have. They also collect things that are knockoffs. So one year they had collected all of these jeans. They were called no excuses jeans. Someone was manufacturing them. They gave us 100,000 no excuses jeans. We were able to pass that out in our community. That happened with skateboards and bicycles. They confiscated all of that. They gave it to us. We gave it out to our community. I want you all to know that you do have a hub that's in this area where asset forfeiture items are at. Please know that you can get asset forfeiture dollars. You're specifically designated in the law to do so. Those capacity building, America Rescue Funds, and you guys, please know that in the Department of Justice, there's a project called Project Safe Neighborhood. It is a mirror of the Drug Free Communities program. We changed one thing on our application. We just changed one thing, and that was that we were going to be focusing in on both doing drug-related crime prevention. And that literally came with a 5-year grant at $150,000 a year. So I'm just sharing with you all, that's actually there. The Administration for Children, Youth, and Families absolutely is a whole nother area to look at. And I want to come down to HUD. How many of y'all have ever worked with the Residents Organized for Self-Sufficiency? It is a program in HUD that actually helps you to organize a public housing site as a coalition. So I want you all to know that that actually exists. And we have like 10 of these. And each one of them are funded with $150,000, where you're organizing the residents in a complex as it's Residents Organized for Self-Sufficiency. So and please, you all think about Chick-fil-A loves coalitions. Chick-fil-A loves coalitions. Walmart and CVS, I know CVS, you all may do your take back with CVS, but they are really usually good for about $5,000, $6,000 a year. Home Depot is wonderful to give you things that are like to do construction projects, to fix your building up, to fix your places like that. Home Depot is wonderful for that. We get donations from Home Depot all the time. And I do want you all to know that these are, again, more capacity building things, please consider AmeriCorps. But I do want you to also know that there's the opioid and pharmaceutical companies are now literally beginning to fund organizations. I just was visiting with Merck, and they're interested in funding coalitions around the country. So just wanted you all to know that. This is all in your handouts. And again, I spoke with you all about all of these things that helps you to build your assets. So most importantly, you all, what I want you all to do for me real quickly is to continue to be that 1%. And just as I said, you guys think about repurposing your public building. In all of your communities, your city and your county have literally have what's called surplus buildings. These are buildings that they can actually give to you. For us, we have a full community center that we pay $10 a month to the city for. It's called repurposing of these buildings. That's happening with community centers, all of those kinds of things. So I just want you all to know that that absolutely is another resource for you all. I love what was said earlier at the very beginning of this. You all, what you do is so incredibly important. Never, never, never. Don't give in. Never give in. Never, never. Because who we're up against, they don't play by the rules. And they sure as heck aren't giving in. But you all stand in the way, you stand in the doorway, I constantly say, of good and evil. And what you guys get up every single day and do is absolutely amazing. And so you all, this is a mobilization exercise I'm going to ask you all to do very quickly. I need everyone to put everything down, stand up real quickly, and get in one big circle inside of 5 seconds. 1,001, let's go. 1,002, 1,002 and a half. 1,003, 1,004. Great. Are we there? All right. Okay. Come on, Carl. There we go. All right. Now, here's what I want you all to do. I want everyone to face that direction and put your hands on the shoulder of the person in front. Put both your hands on their shoulders of the person in front of you. And you got to go in one direction. You have to go in one direction. You must go in one direction in the circle. All right, quickly. All right, y'all pick one. Now, you guys now said this is coalition work. Do you understand? Somebody may want to do something. Which way are y'all going? Come on. Okay. Go clockwise. You all, I want you to know that we did this with first graders and they did this in 3 seconds. All right. Very good. You're all going in one direction. Very good. Now, you all, this is what I want you to do. Hold on. You can stop that. Just stop right there. And so what I want you all to do, you do such amazing work. You are taking on the worst of issues and you're winning. I want you all to pat each other on the back for doing a great job. Now, hold on, you're not finished. And I want you to give each other a massage. Come on, get in there. Get in there. All right, there you go. Okay, hold on. Okay. Now, you all, again, you're not finished. You're not finished. Now, what I want you all to do is I want you to turn around. And see, now you're going to wish you did a better job. Turn around. Pat each other on the back and give each other a massage. Very good. Okay. Now I want you all. Can you hear me? Okay. Now you all, I want you all to just think real quickly. I think my mic went out, but I want you all to think real quickly. You all have been an absolutely amazing. You all are so amazing in what you do. I just want you all to remember, you're going to have this work is not easy. You guys have done such a good job at making this look easy. People think they can step into your shoes, and it happens just like that. But I want you all to know there's a story that I always close with. And it is one, y'all have heard, some of you will have heard the starfish story. But there's a little boy who's walking along the beach. And he's picking up starfish and putting them back in the water to help him live. And so there's this gentleman who's up on the shore, and he's mad because he didn't get his last grant, or he's just really sour. And he says, I'm going to go down there and tell that young man to stop what he's doing, because what he's doing just doesn't make a difference. He needs to go do something else. He proceeds to go down there, and the little boy's still picking up starfish and putting them back in the water. And he says, son, stop doing what you're doing. He said, don't you know that what you're doing isn't going to make a difference? They're just going to wash back up on the shore and die. The little boy looked at the gentleman, and he looked at the starfish, and he started picking up as many of the starfish as he could, and he was walking, he had them really held tight, and he walked as far as he could into the water and let them go. Then he walked back up onto the shore, and he said, sir, he said, it made a difference to them. I want you all to realize that every single day you get up and you do what you do. Whether you realize it or not, you're actually helping to put a whole lot of people back into the waters of life. Whether it's your insistence on getting to yes, whether you're changing things that's going to end up getting an entire community, if it's one person that you are able to help keep doing what they do to get them to another place. You guys are the true heroes and sheroes and the real warriors in the quote-unquote, we used to call it, the war on drugs. It is now not the war on drug. It is about truly helping create safe, healthy, and resilient communities. Thank God for you. You all in this room, to coin a phrase that you hear often, you all in this room is what makes America great. You all in this room is what will keep America great, and the work that you do will absolutely make America great again. And that is not a political statement in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but I just want you all to know I thank you so very much. I am so proud to call myself a coalition leader because of what you do. I'm so proud to advocate for you all. I am so proud to talk about you all. I am so proud to hear the stories of all the things that you all are doing. This is, as we say, si se puede. Yes, we can. Yes, we will. And yes, we can. I want to thank you all so very much for letting me spend this time. You all have filled my heart, and I will go back out here and continue to just fight alongside you all. Thank you so very much, Effie, Doreen, to the Michigan Prevention Network. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.